on. I love how it says that now on Zoom. This meeting's
Yeah,
being recorded.
so official.
Well, welcome everyone if you're watching now or later. But I am so excited, and I was just saying thank you to Dominique for saying yes at the last minute. The way that we met was in Jerry Rosenthul's VP group on Tuesdays. I'm actually going to miss it tomorrow, Dominique. Oh no, I can actually. I'll be able to listen. I'll be on the road. Yeah, but every Tuesday we get to be on this amazing call, and we broke up into rooms one time, and so Dominique and I ended up in the same room, and that was really cool because we all got to like talk a little bit more. And that's when I found out you lived in Homewood, Alabama at one point in your life, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's who knew. And so it's so funny, I also have read your Ion Arbonne and used your Ion Arbonne, and especially for people who are maybe they also have a brick and mortar, just because of your story, and I'm not going to try to tell your story, but I just love it when we get to actually meet the person and hear it, hear your truth and everything. So Dominique is a proud RVP. I love how you said that when I said, and you've been in Arbonne 14 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember what else you told me to say. I didn't like pull it back up.
That's all right. Not a problem.
But I am just gonna, you guys, I'm so excited to just hear what she's gonna share with us. And I'm just gonna hand it over to you and just be quiet. So take it away.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, that was a really serendipitous moment when we got connected in that little room. It was a kind of virtual room. And boy, when I find out that somebody is from Birmingham, then my twang kicks in. I start singing a little bit. I just can't help myself. I was very sore when my husband told me that we were moving away from Birmingham because I loved it. I just loved it. And I'll tell you in a second why I loved it so much. It's kind of, it's a gem, and people don't realize that. There's a lot of those in the United States. They're all over the place. They're these special little places. But anyway, so I'll give you kind of quickly my backstory, then I'll give you the story of my retail business, and then how I fell into Arbonne. It's a pretty unusual story. I have heard a lot of stories, but my story is rather the odd one, in a good way, right? So I was born in 1962 in Antwerp, Belgium, which is very far away. And Belgium is a small country between Germany and France. It was always the first country, especially on today, it was always the first country that was invaded because it was small. So whoever invaded would feel really good about themselves and say, okay, we conquered one, because it was just easy to take over. And my father was born in Antwerp. I was born in Antwerp. And then my mother was from Czechoslovakia. And they were both in, my grandparents were both in World War I and World War II. And then my mother and father were both in World War II as young children. And, one day when we have more time, I'll share some of that history with you all because it's extremely rich. And I feel sometimes in the United States, we gloss over some of those things, but they're really important to note. So I'm always happy to share history, because the way that I understand history and politics and all those things, I don't necessarily go to outside sources. I just go into my own family, and I get enough pieces to pull it all together, because these are factual people and I know them, and they tell me their own experiences. So I grew up that way. And we immigrated to the United States in the early 70s, probably 1972, 73. I didn't know who the Beatles were, didn't know who the Rolling Stones were. None of that was important in our view, because my father was a concert pianist. So we only were allowed to listen to classical music. I came from an extremely strict background. European schools are much stricter. So I remember when I first came to the United States, I spoke not a lick of English, but I was already speaking German, French, and Flemish, which is like Dutch. So English was my fourth language. And how I learned it, I just was taken and put into the public school, and that's it. There was no tutor, there was no nothing, right? So for anybody that is raising children, they can do it. I swear. They're very smart. Kids are very smart, and you have to adapt. So I just adapted to listening to all the other children. And the reason why I don't really have an accent, or it's a little challenging to figure out where I'm from, is because I just listened to the other children speak their American English, and I picked up whatever I heard. So then we moved to Pensacola, Florida. My father got a teaching job there. And then that was kind of a culture shock for us, because I came from a big city. Brussels, Belgium is very, it's the head of NATO. It's where the European Union meets. I mean, it's kind of an important place in the world. And I eventually made my way up to Boston and went to Boston University. And I met my husband after I graduated, and he just happened to be doing a surgical residency at UAB in Birmingham. So very first, spin off, we went to Birmingham, fell in love with Birmingham. And I knew about Birmingham because I had lived in Pensacola. So Pensacola, Pensacola is like almost Alabama, because it's right there on the border. And we had friends. My mother was the director of the art museum in Pensacola, and we had a lot of friends in Birmingham, because Birmingham's actually culturally a rather forward city. And so there was a lot of good artwork there. And so that was that connection. So then we left Birmingham, which broke my heart, as I've shared with you. And we moved back up to Boston. And I think we weren't there for 2 minutes when we realized, okay, we've lived in the South. We can't do this North thing anymore. We got to go back down South. Because once you've experienced how the pace is in the South, and you've got a bunch of kids, you just realize, oh, wow, there's another way. So we turned right around and tried to get back to Birmingham, couldn't. So we did kind of a lateral move, and we moved to Kentucky. We bought a farm. We live right outside of the city of Louisville, about 20 minutes, 25 minutes on a farm, 22 acres. And my husband is a urologic surgeon, so very high pace. In 2001, I had always been very entrepreneurial. I think that, Polly, that's crazy. We'll have to have a side conversation about that. I've always been entrepreneurial, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I immigrated here, and I had to just kind of figure things out on my own. So I'm saying that to you really because I knew that I could rely on my own resources. I knew that if I tripped, or if I fell, or if I fell backwards, or I landed on my rear end, it was okay, because I knew I had enough trust in myself. And I want to make sure that you all hear that, because you all are capable of doing that as well. I'm not extraordinary at all in that category. I just have a little bit more practice, perhaps. And it started very, very early, right? When you're 9 years old and you're having to adapt to your fourth language and another city and try and navigate that, you build up that skill set. But I just want to make sure that you all hear that we all have it. We just might not tap into it as often as I did, or as early as I did. So encourage you to tap into that, especially for your Arbonne business. So I had started doing a decorative painting business. I built scaffolding. I went very high, did murals, did decorative painting. I did a bunch of that in Birmingham. Actually, I had a whole big client base in Birmingham. And had to leave that behind. And then I also built a catering business. I kind of did that through college, which was hilarious because I lived in a studio apartment, and I would say, yes, I can cater that event for you. And then I'd go to my little studio apartment, and I had to kind of shift my body and open up my oven, because it was such a tiny kitchen that like you couldn't just pull back, you had to shift your body. Anyway, I was like, yep, sure, I'll figure that out. And then I get to my little apartment not knowing what I was doing. But again, we are resourceful people. So in 2001, we needed to bring more income in. And I was very interested in growing an antique business because that's something that I was comfortable in, that world of antiques. And so I opened up my first retail store. I went to Europe. I loaded up a container. A container can be either a full semi or it can be half of a semi. So when you see them going along the highway, pay attention to the half semis and the full semis, and just imagine that loaded from top to bottom with furniture. And this was 2001. The economy was roaring. I did all my market research. I chose the right spot. I opened up my store the day that my youngest daughter started kindergarten, because I figure, okay, she's set in that schedule. And I started my business, and it was global immediately. So this is before we had cell phones, before we had any, people weren't even purchasing online. That was very new. We had MySpace, I think, at that point. That was like the height of social media. Yeah, you're laughing. Gabby's laughing. And so 1 month after I opened up my store, that I had my husband and I had invested about $170,000, which is very standard to open up a retail store. You need to pay for your lease. You have to pay, you have to have salary set aside for your employees. You have to have enough inventory to satisfy the consumers. You have to do all your own marketing and advertising. Pay attention, okay? Thank Arbonne while I'm telling you all these things, right? I literally was the back office, the front office, the side office. If something broke, I was the fixer, the mender, the repairer. If there was a shipping issue, guess what? I couldn't call VP support and have them fix it or send a free gift or any of those things, right? I was it. And 1 month after I opened up my store, literally, that is when 9/11 happened. So that wasn't part of any marketing plan. You didn't see it coming, just like current retail owners didn't see this past year and a half coming, right? Nobody saw it coming. And to make matters worse, and honestly, when I first started my Arbonne journey, when I would share this story, no lie, it was such a traumatic experience, my retail business operation. And you'll hear why in just a minute, that I would be sure that everybody that I was speaking to could see my heart literally pounding outside of my chest, but you can't, thank goodness. In any event. So, as a business owner, and I want everyone to hear everything I'm saying and put it right next to your Arbonne journey. Pay attention and put it next to your Arbonne journey. My point at the end of the call is, I hope that you walk away and you never take your Arbonne for granted. Like, I am a stickler about that message because it is such a gift. You just don't realize it. So just hang with me on this story. So here you are, you've already signed a lease. You are tied in, you are locked in. You have customers, they have already ordered product. You are tied in, you are locked in. There's a lot of money involved. And once 9/11 happened, all of a sudden Homeland Security came into play. Customs changed, everything changed. Well, I had a container ship. I had a container that was holding I had a ship that was holding one of my containers that was going across the ocean. It takes 8 weeks for that to go across the ocean. It costs $7,000 every time you ship a container over the ocean. Okay. These are costs that I incurred as a business owner. It landed in Norfolk. And because of 9/11 and the rules changing, they turned it right back around because I didn't meet all the criteria all of a sudden, right? So that happened overnight. And this is the type of stuff that has happened to so many business owners in the past couple of years. So I was stuck and I had to pay another $7,000, get all sorts of people on the other end to approve the paperwork, et cetera. My cell phone bill, my long distance bill, this was before you could play around with that and have no charges or anything like that, was often $3,000, $4,000 a month. So I had to really hustle and move my inventory. And trust me, you get very creative. So my customer base, they were good. I had really good customers. We also did custom furniture. My strongest customer base was Maker's Mark. They live here in Louisville. Most of you all have heard of that bourbon. They're rather well known. Texas Roadhouse, who's ever gone into a Texas Roadhouse? Well, their headquarters are here, and their CEO lived down the street, and we did a lot of custom work for him. Aveda Concept Salons. Anyway, those were my customer base. I was excellent at customer service. You get really good at that as a business owner because your customers are everything. It's also your business builders, but really at the end of the day, business builders come and go, but your customer base, that is your bread and butter. That is what makes the machine roar. So pay attention to your customers. So I built it for 8 years. The economy was getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm skipping a whole bunch of stuff because y'all just don't need to hear it all. And I moved my whole operation to downtown Louisville because I needed to cut my overhead. My overhead was so high. And so I released something, and I cut all my overhead in half. I had to let all of my staff go. And there was, because it was 2007. So if anybody remembers 2008, I could see it coming, because what would happen is that the dollar would fluctuate all the time because it was a global business. And see, this is a little thing that as Arbonne consultants, you don't even experience this. So as an individual business owner, if I quoted somebody one price on a custom piece of furniture and the dollar dropped, which happens constantly, okay? The dollar is devalued, other currencies are upvalued. I, as a business owner, had to make up the difference, because you can't go to your customer and say, I quoted you one price and now I have to quote you another price, because they're just not going to go for that. With Arbonne, this is happening all the time. Sourcing, global shifts in finances. Do you all ever have to deal with that? Nope. You just press, click, put it in the shopping cart, boom, shows up at your customer's door. Just, that's a tiny, tiny little thing, but just think about that as you run your Arbonne business, okay? So 1 week, right in December, for some strange reason, it just kept raining and raining and raining and raining, and it would not stop raining. And the Ohio River kept cresting higher and higher, and downtown Louisville is right on the Ohio River. And unfortunately, my new store was the low spot, and I had a flood. And I lost about $70,000 worth of inventory literally that morning. I had my youngest daughter with me, Brigitte. And I just stood there in my heels and my pencil skirt. And I just looked up and I just said, okay, all right, I get it. I get it. You clearly don't want me to do this. So I hired a whole bunch of my moving guys that made deliveries for me, 3 Ryder trucks, loaded all my inventory in there, drove everything out to my farm. We stuffed so much stuff in my house, in my garage. My kids, they made a little pathway so that they could get around to getting upstairs, because I had to protect all my inventory, because my inventory was everything. It was my whole investment. Luckily, so just turned 2008. Luckily, I was able to liquidate as much as possible, but I lost my shirt. I lost my entire investment on it. And I was able to pay off all my debts. 6 months after that traumatic event, I got on a totally random flight, completely random flight. We just decided, okay, let's go to Chicago. We need to get away. It was a Southwest flight. I chose a random seat. Southwest, you just pick your seat. You're just going down the aisle. I got a little tug. Here's another important piece of information. Listen to your tugs. Listen to your tugs. When your instinct tells you something, don't ignore it. Pay attention. They are important. You have that mechanism inside of you for a reason. So pay attention to it and listen. And so I heard my tug. The tug said, sit here. I sat next to a total stranger. She asked me what I did. I vomited my crazy story because I was still completely traumatized. So what you saw was just the right earrings, the right purse, the right shoes. I'm always pulled together. I was very pulled together, had on the right clothes, all of that. So that's the outside. On the inside, I was barely functioning. At that point, I had already blown my adrenals completely. They were not working anymore. and my cortisol was through the roof. So health-wise, I was already compromised. I was juggling all 3 children. And while I was building my business for the entire 8 years, I was averaging about 80 hours a week, because that is what is required when you are running a business, because you are it. And so this lady was asking me, she was very calm. She just talked to me about, yeah, do not judge ever, because you just don't know. And so she finally, stopped talking, and I said, so what do you do? And so she said, well, I work with a company called Arbonne. I said, oh, what is that? And she told me it's a health and wellness company. And this is also important, she was very relaxed. She did not try and sell me at all, because she had just heard my story. So she just was very relaxed about it, right? Whatever the outcome was not interesting to her. She just was sharing the situation with me. So she said, I'm with Arbonne International, and here's a sample pack and a business card, and try this. You're going to love it. Call me tomorrow and let me know what you think of it. So she was just very relaxed. The last thing on my mind was, what, skincare? Okay, definitely not a priority for me. At that point, I wasn't even washing my face at night. So you can tell I was a horrible Arbonne candidate. And I get a little emotional every time I share this, because for me, I'm a very black and white communicator, you can tell, right? And so we land, I say my niceties to her, she says her niceties. I'm a very loyal person. I told her I would try the product, so I was going to try the product. I'm not somebody that says one thing and then does something else. If I have said it, it is a done deal. I'm walking and pulling my little suitcase, trying not to hit people. That is so annoying. You try and be really good about it. Like, are you a professional suitcase puller in the airport? And she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, this business could retire your husband. Now, at that moment, what she didn't know was, like, I filed that one sentence, this business could retire your husband, literally was the trajectory that I climbed on board that sentence. And that sentence is what drove me, and it pushed me, and it gave me urgency. And I just used that. And that was my why, no matter what. I just kept using that. I didn't care what the situation was. It didn't matter if that stuff that she gave me burned my face off. I assumed that it didn't, because she looked pretty good. But I was just going to take that sentence and carry that as far as I could go, because if there was a business attached to this, shoot, yeah. I called her the next morning. I said, okay, this is really good. I really like it. Like, I kept doing this. Like, it was very different feeling from anything I'd ever used before. And I said, where's your store? How do I get this? And she said, nope, no store. So I asked her a couple of questions. Remember, she had told me this business could retire your husband. So I kind of kept that in the back of my head, because I couldn't connect it. And I'm telling you all of these details because it's important for you all to understand. When you are talking to somebody, you know what Arbonne is, but we don't. So you have to give us time to wrap our head around, what is this Arbonne thing? It's very hard to convey. You have to give us time. Just give us time and do the follow-up. That's why follow-up is so important. So I asked her, well, what do you mean you don't have a store? Do you have employees? No, no employees. I said, well, do you make deliveries? No, no deliveries. I said, all right. How much inventory do you carry? She said, well, I mean, I carry my personal stuff. It's underneath my bathroom sink and in my shower. And so I repeated back to her. I said, so you make no deliveries, you have no inventory, you don't have any employees, you have no overhead. Okay, wait, what is this business? You have to start telling me about this business, because I was calculating that according to where I just left, right? Lots of inventory, always deliveries. And when I was delivering something, you all, it wasn't a hand cream or a lipstick. It was huge pieces of furniture. Like, they were heavy. I needed manpower. I was constantly having to do it in heels, because I was then racing back to go to my store to meet a customer. So, changing just didn't even occur to me. Anyway, so she said, yeah, we don't have any of that. And the best of all is that everything is consumable. Nothing in my business was consumable. How many people need 12 armoires? They don't, right? So the entire business premise of Arbonne was so brilliant, and I saw it right away. Now, again, patience and have grace with people. I couldn't pivot that quickly. So it took me about a year. And I told her, and she knew this about me, I said, you have my word, I will start this business, but I just have to put this other spinning plate in a place where I can pivot and turn and focus on Arbonne. I'm a multitasker, but there was certain things that I couldn't multitask out of. So I'm sharing that with you because I need for everybody to have patience with people that they talk to, but be bold enough to talk to them, because as you can see, for me, this was the one thing. She didn't realize it was the oxygen mask coming down. It was the life preserver. It was the dinghy. It was the rescue boat. It was the, the lifeline, the string. I don't care, whatever. It was a rescue for me. And I just didn't, I didn't realize that there was something like this even possible. I had no idea. And so I just started to build my Arbonne business, failed miserably because I kept wanting to apply my retail business ownership to Arbonne, and it doesn't quite work that way. I was struggling with this whole premise of being duplicatable. That was really foreign to me, and that's foreign to a lot of people, right? To do one thing and be a system and all of that stuff, because I'm an entrepreneur. So I created the systems for everything that I did. And so slowly but surely, I just made the decision, okay, you know what? I'm going to grow my Arbonne business the same way that I grew my retail business. Now, nothing that I'm telling you is a typical thing, right? We're all individuals. What I will say is some people go quicker, some people go slower. I didn't really care about that. I don't really care what's going on the side. Doesn't interest me. I've never been curious about that. If you want to run the race, that's fine. Do your own race. That's good. I'm going to cheer you on all the way to the end. When you build a traditional business, traditionally, it takes 5 to 7 years to start seeing your first real profits coming back to you. 5 to 7. It takes 10 years on average before you really are able to fully pay yourself a salary, maybe even expand your business and take those big steps. So kind of keep that in mind as you're growing your Arbonne business. Now, again, everybody does their own thing and they go as fast or as slow as they want to. But I think it's really important to note that as long as you are putting one foot in front of the other every day and building and doing and touching and follow up and doing all the things that you do, moving forward, you're going in the right direction. Now, here's the thing that you might not like that I have to tell you. I see this a lot, and I see it on my own team. The one thing that we put on the back burner immediately, first thing out of the gate, when things get a little bit overwhelming, or we have a little bit too much squeeze on us, or there's a pandemic, or there's a this or that, or the kids or whatever, is what's the first thing that we put on the back burner? It's our Arbonne business, usually. Okay. So I just want to challenge you. Don't do that, because your Arbonne business is the one thing that can stabilize all that other stuff. I know, I've been on that side. I get it. I understand. So always show up, keep showing up, and don't put Arbonne on the back burner. Don't take it for granted, because it is such an unusual vehicle. There is nothing else out there. Not a corporate job, not any other business ownership. There is nothing else out there that compares to the freedom, the flexibility, the financial ability that you have with Arbonne, the camaraderie, the community, the personal growth, just the inner clarity and the maturity, the maturation that you go through with Arbonne. There is nothing else out there. Not even, it's like Arbonne is on its own little trajectory. And now with our new CEO, I think we are just so blessed. So I could honestly keep talking, but I wanted to be respectful to the 30-minute time frame. So that's
Like
that's
I'm
my
like,
thing.
I have chills on my, like I have chill bumps and I'm not cold. I mean, and I think, and everybody's saying I have chills too, I have chills too. Like what, that blew my mind. It was so good. Like, and I know so many people are going to want to watch this. It just, thank you for doing this tonight of all nights. I mean, what a, I don't know if, I don't even know what to say. Does anybody else want to say something? Because that was incredible.
Yeah, if you have questions, just ask me.
Anybody else?
I loved it. I mean, I just love also the parallel between, I had a business beforehand as well. And mine was different. I didn't carry inventory because mine was more service. It was public relations, marketing, media relations, and that sort of thing. And my thing, I was trading time for money, so it was like I couldn't leverage myself. And so, I mean, I think you covered all the bases, like when I think back to that, but then I think about like what you're saying. And it's so funny, like, when I tell people, like when they start their business, and especially now these days, because like really you just need the products that you use to get started, because we don't really, in this virtual world, we're not like sharing much, and I think about like, gosh, just to have my business license for the city of Birmingham was $1,200.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
that was just for a piece of paper to let me do my business in my house.
Right.
And I don't need
That's why I always remind people of those, I mean, truly those basic things.
Mhm.
I want to answer the question of the 3 book recommendations. Absolutely. Number 1, Polly, what was the last, are you in Jerry's? I think you're in Jerry's
I'm not in the
masterclass.
book. Yeah, I'm not in that.
Okay, give me a second, because I'm determined to
But
answer
was
that
it the
question.
John Maxwell book?
Yes, it was, but some of his titles cross over, and
No, I because I remember, I don't remember which one it is.
yeah, hold on one sec. Because now I need to figure that out. That's really going to bother me. Anyway, number 2 is Leadership by John Maxwell. Number 3 is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Sorry. I happen to have very good habits. I am a very habit-oriented person. Like if I'm on a task, I follow through with it. But I learned so many interesting intrinsic little things, and it was really powerful book for me to read, to then share with my team. Because I think people get very overwhelmed. No, I know that they get very overwhelmed with doing all the things, and just putting good systems into place is so important. And then my number 1 book recommendation, I actually have not really read a book that has impacted me this much. Hold on one second. Latest John Maxwell books. It sounds just like another book that he's.
Or not?
No, Leadership is one that I just read, but it's not Leadership.
Right.
Um,
I could text Stephanie McNamara, see if she can tell me, because I know she's in
yeah,
that.
here it is.
Okay.
Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. Absolutely, hands down. It looks like this. Can you all see that? Developing the Leader 2.0. Yeah. The best book I've ever read. There's a lot of stuff out there, and you can read constantly, and I'm always reading. It's really important. I remember when I first started Arbonne, this was hilarious. I told my sponsor, I was like, oh, what is personal growth? Like, do I really need that? Because when you're in business for yourself, you just don't think about these things. You're thinking about other things, but you're like, what, personal growth? Okay, no. And I remember telling her I didn't think I needed any of that. Okay, so I just didn't have any idea. So then I started slowly to get into that, and I realized, oh, yes, I did. Sure did. So I ate a large slice of humble pie. But Developing the Leader Within You 2.0 by John Maxwell, there's something about that book. It just spoke so much to me, because if you're here, you're already a leader, as far as I'm concerned. You're showing up and you're doing the do, but you need to refine that and edit it, and you need to mature it. It's really important to mature that as you grow and as you go, and that's going to make you be more effective in everything else that you do. So those are my 3 top. And I'm so glad that you love the calm power in my voice. Thanks.
Yes, I was just about to say that's what Yen had mentioned. I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's just so, it's, I appreciate that. I appreciate just, you're just focused, and that's really what we need. Is focus.
Yes. Well, we do. And I will tell you the reason why, when Polly asked me, what title am I, or what level am I, it doesn't even matter. It just doesn't even
I kind
matter.
of got that, that's funny, because and then that's why I kind of was like, honestly, it was just to introduce you, but it really, you're right, you're a leader.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that all of you, and you've got incredible leadership here, but that's what makes Arbonne so unique, is that you don't really need your upline, you need your downline. So that's why you need to pay attention to your customers. And I really focus on that. And I have taught and taught and taught that with my team. Focus on your customer base, focus on your independent consultants. When months are not working exactly the way that you want them to, because things are out of your control, like there's some sort of a hurricane somewhere and power goes out, or, there's always shifts. And this is resilience that I learned in retail ownership that I apply to Arbonne. So it's very important that you have a customer base, because the customer base is going to carry you. Team might not carry you. Upline is certainly not going to carry you. They're going to love you and they're going to be there for you, but it is your customers, your independent consultants, and your preferred clients that are going to carry you. And they do it unknowingly. Like, they don't understand the intricacies of how Arbonne works. It's not important. So you need to take care of them, reach out to them. One thing that I do, for example, at the beginning of every month regarding the prior month, I send out a thank you card handwritten to every single person that placed an order. Every single person, in my own, direct to me. And if an independent consultant spends, $400 or $500, those people get the brand new fist stick or a tea bag or whatever. I don't care, but I want them to remember me, and I want them to know, hey, it's worth it. Stick with Arbonne, because customers are great. They're loyal until they're not loyal anymore.
Right.
And, there's a lot of, in days of old, Arbonne was very, very unique. There's a lot of competition right now. So what makes us really unique is all of you.
Yeah.
You're the ones that make Arbonne unique. Great product, love the product, but there are other companies that make great product, but they don't have you.
Yeah.
So value that and really monetize that. Okay. So that's why it doesn't matter what your title is. Just do a good job and grow it, and treat it like it's truly, treat it like this. It's a multi-million-dollar business. Treat it like that. And you didn't have to make $170,000 investment.
Thank
right?
goodness.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes that's a little tricky, because when you don't make a big investment, then okay, it's kind of easy to put on the back burner, right? So like, if anybody ever wants to have, that one-on-one conversation, I'm so happy to have that conversation with you. But you got my gist, and you are in such good hands with Polly and with Andrea, and Andrea, that I just am so excited for all the things that are ahead of you. I know Polly's going to keep me posted, and I'm just going to be cheering you all on from the sidelines, because there's no retail business that has the opportunity to pour into other people the way that Arbonne does. So it's just another one of the many benefits that we have building Arbonne business.
You have a whole nother family that is just in love with you now, Dominique.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was truly an honor. And that's one reason why I immediately jumped on this, because it's always an honor and it always sharpens my skill set. And I like doing that. So yeah, thank you so much.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. And I know you guys, I know you got so much out of that. And I know we went over who cares, right? That was just like you got poured into. I know I did. And in closing, the only other thing, and I'll just tell the team this real quick. You guys check out boards. Sweet Gabby, as she always does, did a fabulous job of putting together something on our board for Fit for the Fourth. And it will start Sunday. It's a 28-day because I didn't think about this. This was not my original idea. I saw it from someone else and thought, wow, how fun would that be? So we do have one running that just started today. Not that anybody really starts today. And I will start another group. Well, we've already started it, called Fit for the Fourth. And it's really about your excitement. So if you're excited about this to help other people to join and get fit for the fourth, then they'll be excited to do it. So just check out boards because it's all there for you and the group is already up. So, but I just am so grateful to you, Dominique, because this was the best. Like, I know everybody's thinking that. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you. Mwah. Happy close, you all.
Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a happy close night. Thank you. Happy close night. Bye.